What's up, everybody? It's time for some more Malifaux lore. This time we're talking about Lucas McCabe of a bunch of different factions. We'll get into that in a second. This video will contain spoilers for any story involving McCabe, including some minor spoilers out of the new Explorer Society book, and there will be a list of the relevant stories in the description. If you are into this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and now let's do it. Not long after arriving in Malifaux, McCabe finds himself in a guild prison cell. An interrogator and his muscle enter the cell and begin questioning McCabe about a relic that they found on him when he was arrested. McCabe does not cooperate, and the interrogator leaves, the muscle staying behind to beat some sense into McCabe. Later, Lucius Matheson enters the room to find McCabe lightly beaten up and the enforcer laying on the floor. Lucius sits down and goes over McCabe's history, detailing how he's the son of a rich and prominent family in England who's been in a lot of legal trouble and was accused of killing his fiancée. He also points out that McCabe came to Malifaux from Egypt, apparently running away from some very powerful people who had it out for him. He asks McCabe how, given this history, he committed such a seemingly silly mistake to be brought into guild custody. McCabe replies sarcastically, and Lucius says that he thinks it's a cry for help as he's looking for protection from the people who are hunting him. He goes on to offer the treasure hunter a position working for the guild, seeking out relics for the governor general, in exchange for protection from these enemies. When McCabe declines, Lucius threatens to have him put on a train back to Earth and right into the hands of his enemies, and McCabe promptly agrees to his bargain. After he is released, he makes his way to the Little Kingdom and meets with his Ten Thunders contact, informing her that everything went according to plan and that he'll be feeding information and resources back to the Ten Thunders. McCabe assists Chiaki in guiding the personification of Van Helsing and Sherlock Holmes as he investigates several murders. They work together to lure the man to a place called the Library of Everything, which houses the collective stories and myths of all of the people of Malifaux. Misaki, having tasked McCabe and several other of the Ten Thunders Masters to help her destroy several of the existing myths in order to replace them with ones from the Three Kingdoms, helping the Thunders to infiltrate the culture of Malifaux more quickly. Sometime before gaining the position at the guild, Lucas is being questioned by Yamaziko. She's trying to determine if he could be useful to their organization. She asks him about his past and his parents, and he tells a story from a time during his childhood when the guild still exerted its power over the king's empire. His father decides to take him for a walk around the city of London one night, fearing that his son is too privileged and doesn't get to experience the city. He shows his son affection, and McCabe gets mad, as he hates these acts of comfort and love from his parents since they make him seem like too much of an ordinary person, and he fancies himself an adventurer. They are approached by a patrol of Empire soldiers under a guild banner. The leader of the patrol approaches them and questions McCabe's father as to why they are out past the curfew. He explains that they were just headed home and that he has permission to be out past curfew as he is a parliamentary executive. The soldier takes exception to him exerting his privilege, finding it unfair that common folks do not have the same rights, and McCabe's father apologizes profusely. The soldier asks McCabe what he learned on his little tour of the city, and McCabe responds that the city is a dangerous place because of assholes like him. The soldier backhands McCabe and explains to him that he's bigger than him and stronger than him, so he's going to take something from him, and there's nothing McCabe can do about it. He removes a pocket watch from McCabe's pocket, which was given to him by his mother. The soldiers march away, and McCabe's father scolds him for speaking out, but McCabe is just angry that he did nothing to protect him or the pocket watch. His father explains that they took the watch from him because the people of the city are poor, and their presence as wealthy people is a reminder of how little the rest of them have. Yamaziko then questions McCabe about his fiancée, Karen, and what happened in Egypt. McCabe is furious at the mention of her name, but decides to comply when Yamaziko threatens him with her bicento. McCabe explains that he was on a job in Egypt with several locals as hired help. They set out across the desert to the Valley of the Kings, and eventually found a site where they unearthed a dais. The workers continued to beg McCabe not to disturb their ancestors' ancient relics. Upon opening the dais, McCabe finds a pendant with a soulstone embedded in it. One of the workers remarks at the significance of finding an ancient Egyptian artifact with a soulstone, but McCabe is only concerned with how much it'll be worth. McCabe checks his pocket watch and remembers how he had stabbed the previous owner with a sword in order to get it back. Suddenly, all of the men turn on McCabe, unsheathing their swords or pointing their pistols at him. McCabe notices in the distance two figures walking closer, as well as a dog. Soon he's able to make out that the figure in front is bound, and he recognizes her as his fiancée. The men tie him and his fiancée back to back. They explain to him that their employers hunt down people who steal from and desecrate the tombs of their ancestors. McCabe struggles to get free, but it is useless. And the man continues to explain that today is McCabe's lucky day, as they don't plan to kill him, and they shoot his fiancée 3 times. He notices that the soulstone and the amulet that he still has charges as his fiancée dies. He focuses on the soulstone and implores her to help him one last time. Suddenly, a burst of green light erupts from the soulstone and vaporizes all of the men holding him captive. leaving no trace of their presence. McCabe quietly says goodbye to his fiancée and makes his way back across the desert in the moonlight as he tries to decide what to call his new dog. He goes on to explain to Yamaziko that when he returned to the city, he was promptly arrested for the murder of his fiancée, but was let out on a technicality, though he was still being hunted by the same organization. Soon after, the breach opened, and McCabe headed through in order to escape his past. Yamaziko interjects that she still doesn't know why he came to the Ten Thunders or what good he could possibly do for them, and McCabe responds that if Yamaziko had no intention of employing him for his unique skills, that he would not still be sitting there having this conversation. Yamaziko holds up the pocket watch and remarks that she is a very good pickpocket. She tells him to consider it collateral, and that if he ever disappoints the Ten Thunders, Lady Misaki will crush more than just his watch. The Governor General returns to his mansion after taking a tour of the contract towns. McCabe, Lucius, and several other attendants are there, waiting to report to him. McCabe hands him a satchel with a relic inside of it, and explains that he found it exactly where the Governor General had expected, in the lair of a resurrectionist. The Governor General seems to get more and more anxious, and his physical form starts to flicker, as he receives a report about the battle in the quarantine zone, where apparently resurrectionists and Neverborn have been working together, where they are usually mortal enemies. Lucius hands the Governor General some star charts, and explains that he now has all of the relics he needs for their plan. The Governor General is dismissive of Lucius, explaining that he is too powerful to have need of any of these relics, as he storms upstairs. Not long after, the mansion explodes, and the Governor General is never seen again. McCabe had been reporting back to the Thunders on all of the relics that he had been stealing for the Governor General for several years. After a while, the Thunders worked out the Governor General's plan of trying to ascend to tyranthood, possibly with the help of the Hungering Darkness. In the end, McCabe was able to sabotage his plan by replacing the Resurrectionist relic with a fake. This led to an overload of power during the ritual he was performing, and caused his death. Years later, and McCabe is wandering around the Guild Enclave, still not familiar with the layout of the large building. He finally finds Lucius's office and uses his invisibility cloak to sneak inside. He pulls up a rug and scratches out some runes a charm warder had placed there to kill the secretary. As he leaves, he realizes that he needs an alibi for his presence at the Enclave that day, and wanders into a break room, where he finds a woman beating up a coffee machine. He asks her if she needs any help, and she explains that the machine appears to be broken. He points out that this is probably a problem for Hoffman to solve, and she agrees and introduces herself as Nellie Cochran. Not wanting to miss this opportunity, McCabe asks her if she'd like to go with him for a cup of coffee somewhere else. Nellie stammers out that she has an interview scheduled and also is too busy overseeing the other journalists, and plus they are co-workers. McCabe calms her down as he sees that she's getting embarrassed, explaining that it's not a big deal, and then he excuses himself. When Misaki challenges her father, the Oyabun of the Ten Thunders, to a duel, many people within the organization attend the event. McCabe chooses to stand on the side of Misaki, with very few others, as this could be seen as a betrayal to the Oyabun. Once Misaki cuts her father down, becoming the new Oyabun, she gives the order for those closest to her to kill her father's top generals. McCabe and his good friend Sadir join with Mei Fang, Jacob Lynch, Asami Tanaka, and others in carrying out this order. Years later, and McCabe is returning a fake version of a relic that he found on an expedition to a guild official. He explains to the man that his guild babysitter was killed in an accident on the way back, and just before the official hands him his payment, he reveals that the guild man was not in fact dead, and that he knows McCabe had intentionally tried to have him killed. He also explains that he knows the artifact is a fake, as Sonia Crid had been investigating an artifact that McCabe had brought back months ago and found it to be a fake as well. McCabe is relieved that he does not seem to know about his relationship with the Ten Thunders. The official calls for 2 death marshals and tells McCabe that he's fired, and the only reason his life is being spared is because the Governor General had found his services useful over the years. As the death marshals escort him out of the building, McCabe is fearful, not of the guild, but that he can no longer serve a purpose to the Ten Thunders. Immediately after being thrown out the front door, a woman approaches him and delivers a message from the Ten Thunders, informing him that he has a month to make himself useful to the organization before he is visited by Lady Misaki. He immediately thinks to himself that he needs a drink, and he meets his friend Sadir at a bar. He is pouting, and Sadir yells at him to stop being a wimp, which perks McCabe up a bit. Sadir explains that he has a unique job offer that McCabe might be interested in, and when McCabe asks for the details, Sadir asks him to trust him, as a hood is slipped over McCabe's head from behind. When it is finally removed, he finds himself in an opulent carriage in front of 3 people. They introduce themselves as Jesse Holliday, Ludwig von Clausewitz, and Gretchen Janis, the chairwoman of the Malifaux Explorers Society. They explain that they are aware of his predicament and that they have a job offer for him. going on to explain that the Explorer Society is interested in discovering the truth, not simply in making a profit like the Guild. McCabe responds that he's aware of many organizations like theirs back Earthside that go on crazy expeditions into uncharted territory and have a very low success rate, but McCabe only likes to go after treasure that he knows exists and he knows he can find. Janice responds that they are going after the Tyrants, and McCabe's ears immediately perk up as she goes on to say that they think they have discovered the location of a secret entrance to a lost city underneath the bayou, and they plan to go there. McCabe agrees to take the job and they negotiate his payment, but he adds that there will be one more condition, that Jessie has to go with him. Jessie responds that it was her research that discovered the location and that without her, the expedition would be going nowhere. McCabe and Sadir meet Halliday on a boat with several other Explorer Society men and start searching the bayou. Before long, they've made their way to the coordinates, and a few Explorer Society men put on diving suits to see if they can find an entrance. After waiting an hour, McCabe gets a feeling that something went wrong. Halliday checks the oxygen tubes and they are slack, indicating that there's a problem. The three suit up and dive in to investigate. They find an opening to a stone tunnel and go inside. As they remove their diving suits, they notice that the inside of the tunnel is covered in what look like eggs. They also find the remains of the three men who had come before them, heavily disfigured. They explore further down the passage and come to a large room filled with stone carved heads. In the middle is a metal machine that is inexplicably clean and devoid of rust. It's making some sort of noise, and as they get closer to investigate, they see a bluish green disc mounted in the center of the machine that appears to be producing the noise. As they discuss what it might be, they are suddenly attacked by Silurids, except these Silurids are twice the size and are a pale white. As they engage the Silurids, they find that they are particularly hard to injure, and Sadir finds out the hard way that they have black blood. They start to work their way back towards the entrance, and suddenly they hear a loud cry, and a giant spawn mother emerges. As they try to fight it off, it gets a hold of McCabe, and Halliday grabs two soulstone flares and ignites them, throwing them at the beast. They explode and catch her on fire as she tries to protect herself from the blinding light. McCabe grabs the disc out of the machine, and the three make their way towards the entrance. Looking back, they notice that the other Silurids have begun eating the spawn mother. When they make their way to the surface, they contact the Explorer Society on the Ethervox and debrief. McCabe explains to von Clausewitz what happened and describes the disc to him. Von Clausewitz then welcomes him to the Explorer Society. Later, McCabe meets with Yamaziko and lies to her, telling her they found nothing of value on their expedition. Yamaziko is disappointed, but decides not to hold it against McCabe and tells him that his contract has been renewed temporarily. McCabe asks for payment, and Yamaziko hands him his pocket watch. As McCabe leaves, he realizes that he hates working for the woman more than he ever loved this pocket watch. The Explorer Society holds a large party at their estate in the quarantine zone. When Gretchen Janice arrives, all of the partygoers show their respect for her, and several try to approach her to get a bit of her time. However, she makes her way through the crowd and approaches McCabe and Halliday. McCabe is embarrassed as he thinks he was caught staring at Halliday's ass. Janice asks the two if they've had a chance to tour the facility, and Halliday remarks that McCabe has been pointing out which of their artifacts are fakes and which are mislabeled. Janice is happy and asks McCabe to assist their experts in correcting these mistakes. As she walks away, she mentions to the pair that they better be ready for their next assignment. And that's it for Lucas McCabe, formerly of the Guild, newly of the Explorer Society, and always of the 10 Thunders, but maybe not forever? I wonder if we'll have a confrontation between him and Misaki coming up that'll decide whether he sticks with them. Leave your projections in the comments below. Also leave a comment and let me know what masters you'd like to see me do a video about next. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching.